than a 10-minute walk away from this encampment, there was a stone with an inscription on it that had never been seen by a European. So Klein was taken somewhere up here on the Acropolis of the site, and he was shown this huge granite slab with an inscription facing the sky. And this was a pivotal moment because how he responded to seeing this inscription was going to communicate to the Bedouin around him how valuable this stone was. And so he could have acted like it was no big deal. Oh, just another inscription. You've seen one inscription, you've seen them all. Show me something interesting, and walked off. But he didn't know if he would ever see this inscription or if anybody would ever see this inscription again. So I think he did what he had to do. He made a sketch of the stone and inscription. He wrote a copy of the letters from the script of the inscription. He couldn't move the stone. It was huge. It was too heavy. And so all that he could do was take his sketch and his notes and take those back to Jerusalem with him. So after Klein left here, the Bedouin realized that they had something valuable here because Klein got quite excited about it. And so they sent their own riders out to Jerusalem to announce that there was this stone with an inscription, because that's what they do around here. They wanted to have a bartering war go on. And so as word got out in Jerusalem, the different agents from the different countries started trying to purchase this inscription for their national museums. And so the German museum in Berlin was interested, and Klein was trying to secure the purchase of the stone for there. Charles Warren was in Jerusalem, and the British Museum was interested. And the Louvre in Paris was also interested. The French agent, his name was Charles Clermont Guénot. And the thing about him is he was a linguist, and so he really wanted to do a translation of this inscription, and he probably more than anyone else really understood the value of this inscription, and he was determined at all cost to get this inscription. Guénot wanted this inscription so bad that he sent 3 Arabs over from Jerusalem to Deban to make a squeeze of the inscription. Now, a squeeze, think of paper mache being laid wet over the top of the inscription and then allowed to dry. And then once it's dry, then it's peeled off and it leaves an impression of the inscription in the paper. And so these Arabs came, they obtained permission initially from the Bedouin to make this squeeze, and they went, they put the paper over the inscription, and they were waiting for it to dry when the Bedouins started fighting. A fight broke out and they were attacked. One of them was stabbed in his leg from the lance of a Bedouin. And so you can go and look at the pictures from the 1800s, and you can see the lances and what they looked like that the Bedouin were using. He was stabbed. One of his companions grabbed the paper and ripped it from the inscription. It was still wet, and jumped onto his horse and galloped off to Jerusalem, and his companions were able to join him. And so this is the way that a squeeze, it was damaged, but it was a squeeze, got to Guénot in Jerusalem. After the squeeze was made, then the Bedouin really knew that this was valuable, and so the bartering went on, and different groups tried to purchase the stone. Eventually, this is the Ottoman period, and so the Turkish government got involved. The Turkish government said, you got to turn it over, and the Bedouin hated the Turks, and they said to themselves, well, we'd rather destroy it than turn it over to the Turks. And this is when catastrophe struck. So then somewhere right around here, the Bedouin decided to do the unthinkable. They built a fire underneath the Moabite stone until it was heated up, and then they poured water on it, and this splintered it into different pieces, and those pieces were then distributed amongst the families of the tribe. When news of this got back to Jerusalem, everyone was devastated, none more so than Guénot, and yet he was absolutely determined to get this inscription. So this started this long process for which he and others that were helping him were purchasing pieces of this shattered inscription, and he was piecing them back together. If he couldn't get the piece itself, then he'd get a squeeze of it. And so using squeezes and these retrieved pieces of the inscription, the Moabite stone was pieced back together again Since 1873, the Moabite stone has been on display in the Louvre Museum. So my son Barry and I traveled to Paris to see it. This is the Moabite display in the Louvre, while this is the Mona Lisa. But at least there were a few of us excited about Mesha's inscription. So finally, I get to see for the first time the Moabite stone itself. I've been wanting to see this for many, many years, and here it is. Wow. And you can see the parts here. These are the original fragments that were retrieved. And then the smoother area here, that is from, that's the inscription that we know from the squeeze that was made. Pretty cool. So this inscription dates to the 9th century BC. Stele from the Greek, or you can say stella from the Latin. It begins by saying, I am Mesha, son of Chemosh, king of Moab. So in 2 Kings 3:4, we have Mesha, king of Moab, mentioned by name and title. And then the Mesha inscription cries out, I am Mesha, king of Moab. I mean, how incredible is that? That we have this king of Moab mentioned by name in the Bible, and then we have the actual words of